Yesterday, America lost Charlie Kirk, the founder of Turning Point USA, a husband, a father, and a man who sparked debate wherever he went. He was shot and killed, as most of us know, while answering questions at the Utah Valley University. Charlie's voice was silenced at the young age of 31 years old. His death is more than a political tragedy, it's a cultural tragedy. Charlie Kirk was unapologetically bold. To some, he was a hero for free speech, and to others, a lightning rod of controversy. But love him or hate him, you couldn't ignore him. His life's mission was to galvanize the next generation and to push them to think critically and to never shy away from hard conversations, something I deeply embody myself and appreciate. And when it came to hard conversations, few captured public attention like his comments about empathy. And because we talk about empathy a lot in what I do, I thought it would be interesting and helpful to talk about this one quote that was so polarized. And the quote was, I can't stand the word empathy. I think empathy is a made up new age term that does a lot of damage, and sympathy I prefer more than empathy. And when Charlie Kirk said that, critics seized on the quote. They blasted it as cold and uncaring, and taken in context, it actually reflected something so much deeper about how he viewed family, morality, and the role of emotions in decision making. Empathy, as Charlie framed it, meant losing yourself in someone else's feelings to the point of distortion. And sympathy, by contrast, was seeing someone else's suffering while still keeping your own perspective. And then what rises really above both is compassion, which is to act, or the act of caring with clarity. So, to act with clarity and having a balanced response that moves from feeling into really constructive action. And Charlie's point wasn't that we shouldn't care, it was that caring should not come at the cost of truth, discipline, and the bigger picture. And when the public reacted, they reacted with outrage and misunderstanding. And obviously, I think a missed opportunity for reflection. So when the news of that remark or his remarks really hit social media, critics really did accuse him of rejecting kindness itself. And supporters understood what he was aiming at, that empathy unchecked can be manipulation. And when I think about it with regards to this family dynamic in the context of which I operate, if we only feel with one side of the conflict, we might ignore the harm caused by another. And if we only mirror the emotions of one side, we risk enabling the dysfunction instead of healing it. And Charlie saw this as especially dangerous in the family system. Parents, children, spouses, families can really implode when empathy blurs boundaries and fuels enabling. And sympathy acknowledges the pain. However, compassion steps in to help stop the cycle. So, Charlie often emphasized the importance of family as the foundation of our society. And here, his empathy critique really fits in. So, if you think about families, blind empathy in this family dynamic can reinforce unhealthy dynamics and fuel the split within the family. For children, sympathy can validate their feelings without collapsing boundaries or into delusions. And compassion really offers the highest road forward. It's care that is firm, truthful, and transformative. So, in that sense, Charlie's legacy isn't anti empathy, it's pro responsibility. And he was calling us to move beyond emotional entanglements and into purposeful compassion that repairs rather than just reflects. And across spiritual traditions, and especially within the Christian beliefs that Charlie Kirk really was demonstrative of, there really is a long standing distinction between feelings and acting. And as Charlie Kirk often quoted the Bible. The Bible calls for compassion repeatedly, urging believers to really clothe yourself with compassion, kindness, humility, and gentleness and patience. And compassion here isn't just about feeling, it's also about doing. And Jesus himself often modeled sympathy. He acknowledged pain and sorrow, but he didn't simply mirror it. Instead, he responded with action of healing, teaching, and guiding. And at the same time, many traditions caution that unchecked emotion can cloud judgment. So, empathy, when it tips into being overwhelmed, risks paralysis instead of action. And seen neutrally, Charlie's comments weren't a rejection of caring. They actually echoed the old tension between emotion and wisdom and between feelings and action. And so, for those of faith, his critique can be understood as a call to embody compassion that is steady, grounded, and transformative. And for those outside of faith, it still resonates because compassion moves beyond sympathy and beyond empathy and into a more sustainable form of care. When I heard of Charlie's death yesterday, it really brought up my own journey of rejection and people trying to silence me. For 2 decades, I've endured threats, death threats, smear campaigns, relentless campaigns to silence my voice and close my business. I've been called names I won't dignify repeating, and I've been painted as dangerous, manipulative, child abuser, unqualified, all because I dared to speak into a space of the family conflict of child psychological abuse. And much like Charlie Kirk, I didn't come into this world with the accepted credentials. I didn't arrive with letters after my name to shield me. I arrived with lived experiences, with results, and with the unshakable truth of what I've witnessed in children's lives. And for that, I've been discredited as only a high school graduate. And for that, people on both sides of this debate have hurled the most hateful things imaginable at me. And by the way, I have the receipts. I have emails that have been sent to me that the Gardnerians have said, things that they've said in writing about me, things that they've said to me and about me. And also the other side of the argument, where they're publicly calling me names, ridiculing my business and my programs. And yet, those same naysayers who belittle me, they steal my language, they copy my frameworks, and they even pretend to be alienated children to gain credibility and still using my programs. There's so many people that do this on both sides of the debate, and they know my work is effective. They know it literally changes lives. But acknowledging that would require admitting that the voice that they've tried to silence for 2 decades was right all along. And here's the real heartbreak in all of this. This war of words, the threats, the defamation, it isn't about me or even really about Charlie. It wasn't about either one of us. It's about something much bigger. For me, it's always been about the authentic child, the child who is trapped in the crossfire of the adult battles, the child whose authentic voice is drowned out because it doesn't align with the narrative of abusive parents or whichever side of the debate you're on, the child whose loyalty is weaponized and whose silence becomes another victory for the pathology. So while people throw stones at me, and while they debate credentials, and while they fight ideological wars, the child's voice disappears. And that's the cost of the silencing. Charlie Kirk often spoke about courage as well. He saw this as the defining quality required to push against the tide of public opinion. in the face of ridicule and to push through and keep speaking anyway. And I've always considered courage one of my core values as well. And it takes immense courage to speak when the mob wants to quiet you. It takes courage to walk into the fire of lies and ridicule and distortions and refuse to let them define you. And it takes courage to keep showing up again and again and again and again, not only for myself and the truth, but for the children whose voices are silenced far more cruelly than mine has ever been. So, in the end, courage is the thread that binds together those of us who will not be erased or silenced. Charlie Kirk lived in the middle of a political firestorm. He was hated by some, idolized by others, and dehumanized by both sides. And in the chaos, his actual human voice, the voice of a young man, a husband, a father, and a son, was too often drowned out by the caricatures created about him on social media and in the media and in politics on both sides. And I see this every day in my own work. Parents weaponizing children's voices to suit their own narrative, courts and professionals dismissing reality because it doesn't fit their frameworks, critics dismissing me because of where I come from instead of the results that I've brought to the children and the families that I've served for 2 decades. So when you strip away the noise, the truth is simple. A child's authentic voice is literally being buried. Charlie Kirk and his beloved family deserve grace and peace. And we provide this by being united and rising together. If not, divided we fall. And Charlie's death and the very public split playing out across social media must stop. Whether you agree with someone's point of view or not, this war of tearing people down is the same pathology that we see play out in the family court, pitting parents against each other, using children as weapons, and breeding and fueling destruction. This is the very thing that Charlie Kirk spoke out about. The core of justice starts within the family. And when we properly understand and diagnose problems, we can properly treat them. This is not about elimination, it's about integration. It's about the freedom to think differently, to speak, to be different without splitting, without silencing, or erasing one another. And that's where true courage and compassion lives. And that's where our healing begins. So, whether you're a parent fighting for your child or you're an adult child fighting for your own healing, the path forward is exactly the same. It starts with courage, compassion, and integration. If you're a parent caught in this war, you don't have to fight alone. Parent Interrupted was created to help you reclaim your courage, rebuild your relationship with your child, and rise above the pathology that seeks to silence both of you. And I encourage you to join Parent Interrupted and reclaim your voice and restore your child's. Choose courage. And if you're an adult child carrying the weight of your parents' unhealed wounds, I want you to know this. You are not defined by their pain. Healing is possible. You can step out of the roles that were forced upon you and reclaim your authentic voice and your authentic self. And I created the Healing from the Trauma of the Unhealed Parents to give you those tools, to give you the guidance and the community that you need to break the cycles, to restore the inner peace, and to build a life that is truly your own. Your parents' battle, those battles don't have to be your destiny. Your healing begins when you choose courage for yourself. So, Charlie Kirk's death is a tragedy. My journey of being silenced is its own battle. but both remind us that silencing will never work and it will never win. It only deepens the wound. The courage that we need now is to listen, to heal, and to rise together. As we mourn Charlie Kirk's death, let us be reminded that courage is costly, but silence is deadlier. And I will not be silenced because the authentic voice of the child must be heard. So I stand for that voice. And to stand for that voice is to stand for truth itself. So I choose courage no matter the cost. Courage and compassion is where healing begins, and I will not stop fighting for it. So thank you for listening. Have an amazing day.